What is up, everybody? The Premier League is officially back. Plenty to talk about from the opening weekend, starting with the final game, the marquee matchup, Arsenal defeating Manchester United at Old Trafford. The most simplistic description of this game is that Arsenal won without having to get out of second gear. They were not impressive. None of the attacking players played particularly well. They didn't create boatloads of chances. They scored on a set piece, a thing they are very good at, the best in the league at, against a team that's one of the worst defending set pieces, at least last season, that has a mess of a goalkeeper situation. That showed itself in that moment. And then Arsenal did what Arsenal do, shut it down from there, got away with the clean sheet and the 3 points. You saw both big-time new strikers in this game. Gyökeres really struggled to get involved. Benjamin Sesko was not a major factor when he got onto the field. It just wasn't particularly pretty. But this game was played on Arsenal's terms for the most part. And this is where Manchester United are. Because there isn't too much to say about Arsenal other than they need to be better. The more interesting part of this is Manchester United. Because it's not like they played poorly. It's also never like you really felt that they were going to get back in this game or find a way to win. Because Arsenal can go to Old Trafford, find a way to get a goal, and then see out the rest of the game. They are just that much better than Manchester United right now. And Manchester United's two new attacking players that started, Bryan Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha, looked like two players who wildly overperformed their expected goals last season, who are very good players, who did a lot of good things, made some dynamic runs with the ball, caused problems, and lacked quality in the final third. And so it is improving. This was not a horrendous performance if you're Ruben Amorim. But it goes to the larger question of fundamentally, they're not going to be as bad as they were last season. It's almost impossible. But the fundamental question is this truly any different? Are they ready to actually get back to contending for a European spot first, and then second, get back to where they're supposed to be, fighting for Champions League spots? And the way that game played out, it looks like the answer, at least to the second part of that, is no. That maybe they can battle for 5th or 6th, but you didn't see enough there to go, oh, they're on to something. This is going to look way different. Maybe I and everybody else who is buying into this expected goals thing with Mbeumo and Cunha are going to end up being wrong. Maybe Sesko, as he gets integrated and acclimated, hits the ground running, and that changes things. You've just seen this story a bunch, where they spend a bunch of money on strikers. They said in the broadcast it's now $1 billion since Sir Alex Ferguson left. And they really haven't found anybody. That is the default until you prove otherwise. Last season, them not being good is the default until they prove otherwise. And do want to give a shout out to Mason Mount. He was really good at times, especially in the first 10 minutes when United were absolutely the brighter team to start the game, and then Arsenal got the goal, got into the game. United pushed a little bit at the end. The best players on the field were Arsenal center backs. At least from an Arsenal perspective, those were your best players. Not necessarily a good thing, but it's something you can do because they have the best center back tandem in the league. And this is really the story of the opening weekend for me, because you can't draw sweeping declarations. It's one game. Manchester United played a really good opponent. Nobody actually knows what any of this means. But all of the concerns that I and other people had coming into this season, all of the questions at the end of last season, none of that was answered by this game. Many of those concerns, specifically about the quality of the attackers that were brought in and the lack of midfield depth and high-quality midfield performance. And like I said, Mount was good in this game, at least for parts of it. All that stuff is still there, and this performance only validated that. I'm going to get back to that idea at the end here. But first, we need to talk about what Sunderland did. They didn't just win. They put in a really good performance. They kept a clean sheet. They scored goals different ways. It was everything you could possibly think of and want, possibly ask for. If you're a Sunderland fan, the Stadium of Light was rocking. That was an incredible atmosphere. They were kicking every ball. They were applauding every run. You could just see the connection, the excitement, the energy, and the players then put in the performance that got the fans even more excited and brought even more passion to the game because the players showed up big time. I said from the very beginning, it's not that this team isn't good. It's not that they did bad work this summer. They did excellent work. They are exponentially better now than they were at the end of last season. My question was simply, did they do enough to not only close the massive gap between them and the other two promoted teams, but then to go catch somebody else, right? Because it's not enough to finish 18th, finish the best of three promoted teams. You got to finish somebody who is higher than somebody who is already entrenched in the Premier League. I just didn't see and believe that they had done enough for that to happen. Again, this is one game, so you can't overreact and just change your thoughts on everything. However, one, that was just a really, really good performance. That was not just a win. That was the kind of performance that gives you a lot of confidence and a lot of belief, and that goes a long way. Second, when you are a newly promoted team, expected to go down, trying to find a way to stay up, getting points on the board early is massive. Because it gives you that belief that maybe we can do this. You're not just resigned to your fate immediately, fighting an uphill battle. That's the other part of this. Is that you know at least for a couple weeks you're going to be in the fight. Just mathematically. Right? They have 3 points on the board. There are a bunch of teams that don't. Could they go lose 9 out of their last 10 and collect 1 point in their next 12 games or something? Absolutely. We don't actually know how good this team is. We don't know if they have any chance of staying up. They could not do anything else the rest of the season, be buried, nailed to the bottom of the table, and this is the one moment. But at least they gave their fans a moment. And it was the biggest story coming out of this opening weekend. Sunderland stole the show with not only winning, but the way they did it, the way that stadium responded, and the questions that you now have to ask and be open to the possibility that maybe this team is better than any of us realized. We don't know that for sure. It's on the table, though, based on what they did in that game. Now, on the flip side, you have West Ham. And you have Brentford. Both teams were down 3-1. West Ham to a newly promoted Sunderland team. People have a lot of questions about, and pretty much everybody expects to get relegated. Brentford against a Nottingham Forest team that obviously was very good last season. Lost Anthony Elanga. Hasn't gotten their business done in the transfer window yet. And many people, including me, expect to take a step back. Losing a road game, not the end of the world. Losing Nottingham Forest, not the end of the world. However, I brought this up with Brentford in particular in my Premier League season preview. These two teams, if you take away Manchester United and Ruben Amorim, I would argue these two managers might be under the most immediate pressure of anybody in the league. Mikel Arteta is not getting fired during the season unless it turns into a disaster. Now, if they finish second or third again, maybe a change is made at the end of the season. You got to see how things play out. But in terms of first manager fired, to me it is a 3-person race between Keith Andrews, Graham Potter, and Ruben Amorim. At least where things stand right now. Maybe Daniel Farke also gets thrown into that conversation depending on how Leeds look. But if you take Amorim out of it, because either they're going to get better, he's going to get fired, or they're just going to ride this out with him and give him every possible opportunity to turn it around. If you just look at these two teams, and you look at these fixture lists, I believe Brentford have one home game against a non-Big Six, non-European qualified team until late November. And West Ham have 2 between now and Christmas. Could they go win on the road against a Fulham or something? Sure. Could they beat Manchester United at home? Sure. But if you're West Ham, you just lost an opportunity, a clear-cut opportunity for points. When the vibes already aren't great, there are questions about Graham Potter. You're coming off of a poor season. You needed to get off to a good start. You lost 3-0 and got humiliated by a Sunderland team that nobody thinks is good. Again, maybe they are. Maybe we're all wrong. We're going to have to see how this all plays out. And Brentford in particular, with the way that this schedule starts, with what's gone on this summer, with what is still going on in terms of how this transfer window ends in Yoni Wies's situation, with a first-time manager who is a set-piece coach, Keith Andrews is just set up with the odds stacked against him from the very beginning. And so there were major concerns and question marks with these two teams, going back to the main idea that I brought up at the beginning. Those questions and concerns got validated in this first game. Does it mean it continues? Of course not. This is as far as you can go in terms of analysis and takeaways from one game. It looks like a lot of the stuff we were worried about might be actually a problem. As opposed to, seems like they've figured out some of the stuff and maybe it's not as big of an issue as we thought. By the time these teams have a favorable part of their schedule, it is absolutely within the realm of possibility that one or both of these managers has been fired. Because you can't afford to just sit there in the relegation zone and do nothing if you are West Ham and if you are Brentford. Again, we don't know it's going that direction, but it's not off to a good start. And this is part of how quickly things change. Because you look at this and you go, okay, let's just assume Tottenham and Manchester United are much better. Top half of the table at the very least. That's 6 spots. Newcastle and Villa are going to be up there. That's 8 spots. Brighton going to be there. That's 9 spots. I still feel good about Bournemouth even though they have to rebuild their entire back line. That's 10. I believe Everton are going to finish top half of the table. That's 11. That's before you even get to anybody else. A Fulham, who I always seem to have questions about, but Marco Silva always has that team solidly mid-table. And maybe they do something before the transfer window ends. That's 12. Right there without even talking about anybody else. Right? There just aren't that many games that you look at if you're a Brentford, if you're a West Ham, and you're not playing well, that you go, yeah, we should get 3 points there. One of those, West Ham has already lost by 3 goals. And there's always danger in just looking at schedules and projecting forward because you just don't know, particularly in this sport. But from a storyline takeaway standpoint of the first game of the season here, this opening weekend, that's what I came away thinking about. Manchester United, Brentford, West Ham. Those concerns that we had, the questions, they seem to be legitimate. And if that doesn't get changed and the issues don't get addressed quickly, you could see some pretty fast managerial changes because those 3 clubs, maybe more than any other, can't afford to go down this road again, or in Brentford's case, allow themselves to get into a position where relegation is a real possibility. And everybody else just continues to improve and get better. And Brentford took the huge step back, losing a really good manager, losing a key player, perhaps losing a 2 key players, potentially a third, right? They got gutted this summer. New coach who's never done this before. Relegation is on the table here. Again, too early to jump to any kind of real dramatic conclusions. But a lot of the issues and the question marks that we had, you came away feeling like they are very valid concerns and need to be addressed from this opening weekend. That's as far as you can go with anything right now. That is all I have for this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.